Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Let me ask you a question. What does the American dream look like to you? For decades, the answer was simple. You get a job, you work hard, you save a little money, and you buy a house with a white picket fence. It was the ultimate symbol of success. It meant safety. It meant you made it. But today, for millions of young people, that dream feels more like a hallucination. You look at the housing market and you feel like you are losing your mind. You see a rundown shack with a leaking roof and a possum living in the attic listed for $500,000. You see one-bedroom apartments renting for $3,000 a month. And you think to yourself, who can afford this? Is everyone secretly a millionaire except me? Let us look at the numbers because they are terrifying. In 1950, the average price of a house was about 2 times the average annual salary. Think about that. If you worked for 2 years and saved every penny, you could buy a house cash. A janitor could buy a home and support a family on a single income. Fast forward to today. The average home price is now close to 8 times the average salary in many cities. In some places like New York or Los Angeles, it is 10 or 12 times. You are playing a game that is rigged against you. You save for a down payment, but by the time you save $20,000, the house price has gone up by $50,000. The goalposts keep moving. You are running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up until you fly off the back and hit the wall. And the standard advice from the older generation is useless. They tell you to stop buying expensive coffee and avocado toast. They say, if you just budget better, you can buy a home. That is mathematically insulting. You could skip coffee every single day for 300 years, and you still would not have enough for a down payment in a major city. The problem is not your spending habits. The problem is that housing has transformed. It stopped being a place to live, and it started being a financial asset for the ultra-rich. But here's the scary part. This is not an accident. This is not just inflation doing its thing. What we are seeing right now is a fundamental shift in how society is structured. We are moving from an ownership society to a rentership society. There are massive forces at work, huge Wall Street giants, and faceless corporations that do not want you to own a home. They want you to rent from them forever. They want to turn your monthly shelter cost into their monthly dividend check. In this video, we are going to expose the great housing trap. We are going to look at who is actually buying all the houses. We are going to talk about why they want to turn you into a permanent tenant. And most importantly, we are going to talk about what you can actually do about it, so you do not end up living in a pod and owning nothing. Buckle up, because this is going to make you angry, but it is also going to open your eyes. So who is buying all the houses? You go to an open house and you expect to see other families. Maybe a young couple with a baby. Maybe a guy looking for his first bachelor pad. But instead, you are competing against an invisible enemy. You put in an offer. It is a good offer. Maybe $10,000 over the asking price. And 20 minutes later, the real estate agent calls you and says, sorry, we just accepted an all-cash offer for 20% over asking with no inspection required. Who has that kind of cash lying around? It is not the young couple. It is certainly not the guy looking for a bachelor pad. It is Wall Street. Since the financial crash of 2008, big investment firms discovered a new gold mine: your neighborhood. They realized that people will always need a place to sleep. It is not like a luxury watch or a fancy dinner. You can choose not to buy those things. But you cannot choose not to have shelter. These massive funds raised billions of dollars from investors. And they built algorithms to scan the entire country for starter homes. The algorithm finds a 3-bedroom house in a good school district. It calculates the potential rent. And if the numbers work, it automatically makes an offer within seconds of the house hitting the market. They are buying thousands of homes a month. Entire streets. Entire subdivisions. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly against someone who starts with unlimited money and can buy properties before you even roll the dice. That is your life right now. They swoop in, buy the house, do a quick coat of white paint, and put it back on the market as a rental. And guess how much the rent is? Exactly the maximum amount you can afford to pay without starving. They call this the institutionalization of single-family housing. It is a fancy way of saying they are turning neighborhoods into factories. The house is the machine, and you are the raw material feeding it with your paycheck. And because they own thousands of homes, they can control the market price. If one company owns 20% of the rentals in a city, they can raise the rent and you have nowhere else to go. But it gets worse. It is not just big funds. It is also the rise of the short-term rental empire. You know the apps I'm talking about. Investors buy up perfectly good homes that families could live in and turn them into unregulated hotels for tourists. A house that used to shelter a family of 4 now shelters a bachelor party for 2 nights a week. This removes millions of units from the housing supply. It creates a scarcity. Economics 101 says, when supply goes down and demand stays the same, prices go up. But demand is not staying the same. The population is growing. People are moving to cities, so you have a perfect storm. Massive corporations buying the bottom of the market. Short-term investors buying the middle. And regular people are left fighting for the scraps at the top, which are way out of their budget. Now let us talk about the other invisible hand that is choking the market, the interest rates. For a long time, we had historically low rates. Borrowing money was basically free. This fueled a massive buying frenzy that pushed prices up. But then inflation hit, and the central bank slammed on the brakes. They raised rates faster than a sports car going from 0 to 60. Here is the math that nobody explains to you in school. When interest rates go from 3% to 7%, your monthly payment does not just go up a little bit. It explodes. Let us say you want to buy a $400,000 house. At 3% interest, your monthly payment for the loan is about $1,700. Doable for many people. But at 7%, that same house costs you over $2,600 a month. That is almost $1,000 more every single month for the exact same house. Over the life of a 30-year loan, that difference is hundreds of thousands of dollars. You end up paying for the house 3 times over. Once for the seller and twice for the bank. This has created a phenomenon called the lock-in effect. People who bought houses 5 years ago with low rates are not selling. Why would they? If they sell their house, they have to buy a new one at a 7% rate. They are trapped in their own homes. This means there are no houses for sale. Inventory is at record lows. So you have high prices, high interest rates, and no options to choose from. It is a triple threat. And this financial reality is creating a deep psychological crisis for an entire generation. Psychologists are calling it a failure to launch. But it is not a failure of the person, it is a failure of the environment. If you cannot afford a home, you delay other things. You delay getting married. You delay having kids. You delay starting a business. Because a home is the foundation. It is the stable base you build your life on. Without it, you feel like you are constantly in flux. You are always one lease renewal away from being priced out of your city. This creates a sense of nihilism. You think, why save money? If I save $500 a month, it will take me 40 years to get a down payment. So, I might as well spend it on a nice trip or a new phone. I might as well enjoy today because the future looks impossible. This is exactly what the consumer economy wants. They want you hopeless. Because hopeless people spend money on short-term dopamine hits. People who are building a future save money. So, the system is perfectly designed to keep you renting and spending. You pay rent to the corporation. You spend your leftover money on products from other corporations because you gave up on saving. And the wheel keeps turning. You work, they profit. You age, they grow. It is a modern form of feudalism where the lords own the land and the serfs work the fields but never own the dirt under their feet. You have probably heard the influencers on social media saying that renting is actually smart. They say buying a house is a liability. They say you should rent and invest the difference in the stock market. Don't tie up your capital in a dead asset. They shout while filming from a rented mansion. This sounds clever, but for 99% of people it is terrible advice. Here is why. It ignores human nature, and it ignores leverage. First, let us talk about leverage. When you buy a house, you're using the bank's money to build your wealth. You put down maybe 5 or 10%, but you get the appreciation on 100% of the asset. If you buy a $300,000 home with $30,000 down, and the house goes up in value by 5%, that is $15,000 of gain. That is a 50% return on your actual cash investment in 1 year. Try getting that in the stock market consistently without risking a heart attack. Second, buying a house is a forced savings account. Every month when you pay your mortgage, a portion of that money pays down the debt. You are paying yourself. When you pay rent, 100% of that money is gone. It is set on fire. It evaporates into the landlord's pocket. Over 30 years, a renter pays hundreds of thousands of dollars and ends up with zero equity. A homeowner pays arguably the same amount or less and ends up with a fully paid off asset worth $500,000 or more. And the invest the difference argument? It is a fantasy. Most people do not invest the difference. They spend the difference. They see the extra money in their account and they buy a new car or go out to dinner. The mortgage bill forces you to build wealth every single month, whether you feel like it or not. But there is a deeper reason why they want you to believe renting is better. It is about control. When you rent, you have no control. The landlord can paint over your walls. They can tell you no pets. They can inspect your drawers. They can kick you out. When you own, you have sovereignty. You can paint the walls black. You can knock down a wall. You can plant a tree. That psychological feeling of ownership is crucial for a free society. A society of owners is stable. A society of renters is fragile. Owners care about their neighborhood because they have a stake in it. Renters are transient. If the neighborhood goes bad, they just leave. And do not think for a second that the rich people telling you to rent are renting themselves. The billionaires buying up the neighborhoods live in massive estates that they own. The investment bankers turning houses into rental products own multiple vacation homes. They know the truth. Real estate is the greatest wealth builder in history. They just want to keep it all for themselves. They want to be the landlords, and they need you to be the tenant. It is not about freedom. It is about extraction. So is it hopeless? Are we doomed to be serfs in a corporate kingdom? Not if we wake up and change the strategy. The old advice of save and buy is broken. We need a new playbook for this hostile environment. First, you have to stop playing by their rules. If you live in a city where the price-to-rent ratio is insane, where buying costs 3 times as much as renting, do not force it. Do not buy a house just because society tells you to. But do not just burn your rent money either. You must become an aggressive investor. If you are forced to rent, you have to treat your investment account like your mortgage. Make it non-negotiable. Automate it. You need to build a pile of asset stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, whatever you believe in that grows faster than inflation. You need to build your own equity outside of a house. Second, look for the cracks in the system. The corporations are buying the perfect turnkey homes in the suburbs. They are not buying the ugly houses. They are not buying the fixer-uppers that need a new roof and have a weird smell. This is your advantage. You have sweat equity. They have to pay contractors expensive rates to fix things, which ruins their profit margins. You can do the work yourself on weekends. Look for the houses the algorithm rejects. The ugly ducklings. That is where the value is left. Third, we need to vote with our feet and our ballots. The housing crisis is a policy choice. It is caused by zoning laws that make it illegal to build affordable homes. It is happening in some cities already. People are fighting back. And finally, you might have to redefine the dream. Maybe the dream isn't a 4-bedroom house in the city center anymore. Maybe it is a smaller house a bit further out. Maybe it is buying land and building something yourself. Maybe it is house hacking, buying a duplex, living in one side and renting the other to cover the mortgage. This is not giving up. This is adapting. The American dream of the past was handed to people on a silver platter of cheap debt and abundant land. That era is over. The new American dream has to be fought for. It has to be strategic. It requires you to be smarter, more disciplined, and more creative than the generation before you. They want you to give up. They want you to accept that you will own nothing and be happy. Do not give them that satisfaction. Get angry. Get educated. And start building your own little fortress of freedom one brick at a time. Whether it is a house or a portfolio of assets, ownership is the only path to true freedom. Thanks for watching. If this video made you think, hit the like button and share it with a friend who is struggling with the housing market. We need to wake people up. I will see you in the next one.